Welcome to a special episode of Almost Above Average with Chris McIntyre. Today I had a special guest on the show. His name is Kevin Coates. He's a recovering addict. And I struggled with this, I have been struggling this for a while, that I was able to get where I'm at because I quit drinking. The only way I was able to quit drinking was because I was able to listen to other people and they give me advice. And I struggled with wanting to do a podcast because so many recovery stories are powerful. But what I didn't want to do is make my brand about recovery. I didn't want to brand myself as the recovery podcast. So, but I don't want to deprive anyone of these stories because I swear these stories are what saved my life. But I met Kevin when I was out and about yesterday knocking doors. He does the same thing. And we kind of just connected on a recovery level, and we started chatting about that and kind of, exchanging war stories kind of thing. And he just told me some really, really heavy stuff that happened in his life. And I asked him, I was like, man, would you be willing to share this on the podcast? And luckily he was willing to share it. So again, I'm not trying to make this podcast about recovery, even though I am a huge supporter of it and I am in recovery myself. But I do want to, from time to time, if I hear a cool story that I want to share, I absolutely am going to bring them in here. Just because, these stories of people coming from nothing and just so much pain and shame and anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation, that when you can come from that and turn it into something positive, I think that's remarkable. And I want to highlight that time that I can. That's what this podcast is about. So I hope you enjoy my podcast episode with Kevin Coates. He was a great, extraordinary young man, and I feel like we're going to be friends for a long time after this. So please enjoy. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Chris McIntyre, and this is Almost Above Average. For the majority of my adult life, I was up to no good and was definitely in need of a change. I failed many times trying to change on my own, but it was listening to others that finally got me headed in the right direction. Being able to listen and take advice saved my life, and I'm still listening. I'm seeking out interesting people, stories, and experiences to share with my audience in hopes that you too will learn something to add value to your life. Thank you for tuning in, and get ready for another action-packed episode of Almost Above Average with Chris McIntyre. Please share with a loved one, and we would really appreciate a 5-star review. Thank you, and enjoy. Now let's jump into the conversation with Kevin Coates.
Labs or anything like that?
Yeah, we started another one called the Awful Podcast. He's the guy that designed this shirt, and I have a matching pair of shorts that go with it. So he's working on my website. He's building my website. He's also working on an online storefront on the website where listeners can purchase the merch directly from there. And then also all the latest episodes for all of the podcasts that I have, because I have this one, which is called Almost Above Average. I have another one with my buddy Jason called Partial Intelligence, which on that one it's a little more blue. It's like he's an old childhood friend. We grew up together, so our dynamic is just silly, and it's more like it's a fun podcast. We cuss, we talk about horrible things.
Yeah,
just like dudes. We're just two dudes on a podcast.
Yeah.
So that one is separate. And then the Awful Podcast is a very creative. It's where we work on the merch stuff. We work on designs. We're putting together courses for podcast production. I'm going to start selling courses on producing a podcast, recording and producing it and putting it out, because it took me so long to learn that. And if I could teach somebody in an hour what it took me a year and a half to learn. So, and
I feel like you would genuinely do that. Because you got a lot of creators that are out there, they'll put this is my course. They'll charge a bunch of money, and they basically just give you the bare minimum, but you look like you'll actually help somebody do that.
What I was thinking is for the pay structure for that, what I'm gonna do, I might do it with this episode right now, is record myself editing it and talking through everything that I'm doing during the edit, screen share it.
Smart.
And I'll keep that, and that'll be the product. I'll sell this to you for $49 or whatever. Or for a higher price, you can have the video and you can also get a one-on-one with me, and we do a podcast, but you watch me edit the podcast and I answer all the questions that you have, kind of thing. So I think there's value in that, just because I wish I had it when I started this.
Right. So you already know what, like, you already know the ins and outs now, but you basically giving somebody a shortcut.
Exactly. I don't think I know the ins and outs, but I do have a shortcut
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
took me so long. Like just getting the software and terminology down, like took me forever. So if I can shortcut that for somebody else, I want to. But there's a value to it. There's a
Absolutely.
price.
Absolutely. Man,
Yeah.
you sound like all around entrepreneur, bro.
I think so.
Like
I'm
seriously, you
trying.
got the business structure. You like you know where you want to go, and you know where you're going. You know, and now you
Yeah.
know how to get there. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And you're getting there.
Well, do you know why?
Why?
All of this? Because I was a fucking alcoholic from 13 to 38.
What?
So all of those years, I lost so much time not doing shit. Like, just, I mean, that's why you're here, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we connected yesterday just on the street in the middle of nowhere
Right.
out of a common, we both are recovering addicts and alcoholics.
Yes.
And
yes.
To me, those stories, the reason I am sober today is because of these stories.
Right.
Because I've heard people tell their stories and I can identify with them. That's the reason that I'm able to do any of this, is because I was able to listen to somebody else, give me suggestions, tell me their horrible stories so I could identify with it. Because for my addiction journey, it felt like I was the only one in the world with these problems. I didn't know there's a whole community of people going through this stuff that can help,
Yeah.
So it was just horrible. But that is me recovering and still going through the recovery process right now is enabling all this, even though it's really not much. You and I are sitting in a closet right now talking.
Man, but listen, I've never felt so much comfortable, man. Like,
Awesome.
I'm serious. Like, it's, you know, I know the most craziest thing
Mm-hmm.
is after I met you guys yesterday, and I went back home, I literally got fired from that job.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got fired. I definitely got fired. But what's weird was during that day, I was just thinking to myself, like, man, I feel so out of place here. Like when you know, you know. Like especially like people like us, we pick up on like people like energies, vibes. You can tell when you just don't fit.
Right.
And I felt like I didn't fit there, but I also didn't. I don't know how. I didn't know how to quit. Like nothing like that. Like you know. And I almost literally passed up this opportunity working at this place, this recovery spot, because I said I already got a commitment working here.
Mm-hmm.
And literally that same day, that was the same day, yesterday, that I told them that was the day that I got fired.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was literally like I almost blew it. You know what I mean? But I felt like that was God's day. How everything worked out yesterday was like, yo, it was supposed to happen like that. You know what I mean? It was supposed to happen like that because they normally wouldn't have set me out on my own, probably, right? And so they told me not to come in when I was about to come in and to stay home. And if I wanted to, I could work my neighborhood. So I think they already had it in the plan to get rid of me.
Yeah.
But they just didn't know why, because they were just like, well, you're just not a good fit. You're just not what we're looking for. So it wasn't anything that I did wrong. But like in hindsight, thinking about it it's like, all right, well, I felt like they was gonna fire me anyway.
Right.
But so they held me off and said, in the meantime, I can work my neighborhood. So I'm working my neighborhood, and then I run into you guys, and like we clicked. Like I felt like I already knew y'all. You know what I mean? I felt that.
Dude, that's how God works in my life. That's why, I was telling you that yesterday. But for the people who don't know, I was a horrible atheist for my entire life. Like, recovery is the reason that I even found God or, a spiritual connection of some sort. Like, I was not this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when after a few years of these coincidences that I now call God, when I met you yesterday, like we clicked right away and we had something in common, immediately. And that is the way that God works in my life today. The fact that we're sitting in here we're going to tell your story, but we're going to tell the story, and I promise it's going to help someone. You know what I mean? Because it's going to help me, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how God works in my life. I just.
But when did that happen for you? Like when was it that moment that came that you was like, okay, maybe God is real?
I had got fired. So when I moved out here, I came out here with a bag of clothes and $1,000, and I had a job lined up here, and I was working there for a few weeks. They had put me up in an apartment, and everything was going okay, except for my thinking was still screwed up. I still wanted to run everything the way I wanted to run everything. So at this job, I ended up screwing it all up, and I got fired. So they were paying for my place to live, and they were giving me my income at the time. So I had just moved here. I had nothing. My ex-girlfriend or my ex-wife was here with her boyfriend and her kid and my kids, but I didn't know anybody else. So all I had at that time, I had been to a few AA meetings and I had met a couple people. But the day I got fired, how I came to God this day is I was sharing about it in another meeting that I'd never been to in another city. And I was just bitching about my day, how I just got fired, and I moved here with a bag of clothes, and now I'm getting kicked out of my apartment. I'm about to be homeless. Like that kind of thing was happening. And some guy in this meeting, he was like, "Dude, I can get you a job tomorrow. I'll get you a job tomorrow."
What?
And at the time, like that, someone helping me, like hearing my story and then reaching out, like, "Hey, I can help that right now." Like that really like touched my soul. Like I can't believe someone would offer something like that, and so that's exactly what happened. That guy ended up getting me a job, and I moved in with my ex for a little while until I got enough money to get back out on my own. But that's kind of how I discovered God. Was like it was a unbelief in like there's no way someone's gonna help me like this. Like I just get fired. I'm screwed. I'm totally screwed. That's what I was thinking. But the fact that he offered a job and got me a job was that's how I came to believe.
Wow. That's crazy as you say that, because it's kind of like what brought me up here. Like that's crazy as you said, because like what brought me out here is losing my job and my place to stay literally at the same time. Like, cause I was a living house manager. Like I was I was a living house manager for this recovery program. So I'm the house manager, so he pays me, but I live there as well. But the thing was I was still a client. So I don't know if that's even legal, but there was loopholes or whatever. But me being a client, when my time ran out and my authorizations ran out, he basically was like, all right, well, I mean, if you could find somewhere to stay at for a couple of weeks until this other house that he was about to open, it was an IOP house. He said, if you could find somewhere to stay at until this other house opened, then, of course, you still have a job. Problem was I didn't have another spot. So I had 6 days to figure out what I was going to do. And, my mom just died, and I was like, all right, well, I couldn't bring myself to go back to that house and not see my mother there. So when she got killed, from that point, I never went back to the house. Like, I never even went back to that house. So I'm like, all right, well, I can't go there. And like I said, we're not from Baltimore. Like, so I don't know nobody. I said, and I'm clean. So I'm like, all right, so I don't know what I should do. So on a whim, I hit my grandmother up, and God literally made a way for me to get on a Greyhound bus that next day. I had a storage paid for because I just got my last paycheck. So I was able to pay for a storage to put, because I lived at this recovery spot for 2.5 years. So I accumulated some stuff. 2.5 years of clean, and me not really having much. I had an okay childhood, but not having things made me want to just get everything, want to buy everything. When you get clean, you get money, you see it, you want it, you buy it.
Yeah.
So Amazon was at the door like every other day, right? So this is 2.5 years of doing that. So I'm like, I got all this stuff. What am I going to do? So God made a way. That next day, I had a storage paid for. I was able to get all of my stuff to that storage, and I was on a Greyhound bus that same day. I spent 10 hours on a Greyhound bus getting here. And I've been up here for about a month.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to hear how that happened to you, and this kind of similar thing happened to me.
And here we are together.
And here we are, man.
I'm saying that is God to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did you end up in this recovery home? Tell me how you became an addict.
All right, yeah. So all right, so it. So I always say I got born into it because it's like my mom, God rest her soul, she got high my whole life, right? So I say I was born into it, and in my family, you either using drugs, you selling drugs, right? So I was always
You didn't have
around
a
it.
chance.
I didn't have a chance, man. I didn't have a fighting chance, and like I was always around it. It was always familiar. So like I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it was something that took my mom from me, every day. Like I said, she did the best she could. I never wanted or needed for anything. Um, I don't know how she did it to this day, but as I got older, I started understanding certain things. But the one thing that I never knew was how come my mother, she will look normal on 1 minute and then she'll leave and she'll go in the back room where everybody's at. And when she comes out, I always call it the stuck face, cause she'll go back there, she'll get high, and she came out looking like a totally different person. Like like when my mother get high, it's the geek. She used cocaine. She was a totally different person for like 10 minutes. She was somebody different, and then she turned back to mom. So I didn't understand what that was. I just knew, okay, when mom goes in the back, she's gonna come out a different way. And I have many other brothers, but on my mother's side, I have two other brothers. The middle child, not my oldest, but the one, but my other brother, he was raised by like somebody, like his second mom. He called her. Carter. So it was just me and my oldest brother. And I used to remember like sitting, Indian style playing Uno by myself and stuff like that, stuff like that. But that was normal. Like
Right.
that was normal to me. You know what I'm saying? But stuff like that. But get as I was getting older and starting to understand, okay, well, this isn't normal. When mom goes in the back and comes out, that's not normal. Because now I'm starting to go to my friend's house and I'm starting to see how their families operate. They eat at the dinner table and stuff like that. That wasn't normal to me. So yeah, that. So how I got into addiction though is around the time they called it the pill mills, where they had crooked doctors. And like I said, I'm from Solomon's Island. I'm from Calvert. So it's like Southern Maryland. So things wasn't as easy to get your hands onto. I always used to say getting high where I'm from was like a job all in itself. Because if you didn't have a car, and you would have to have your stuff like the day before stuff. So you had
A lot of planning has to go into it.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I don't know how. For me to get high for like 11 or 12 years, all of that couldn't have been my money. So, like, I was getting high for other people's money and stuff like that. I got a lot of ends to make. I did wreckage. But I would never forget it. I used to suffer from these real bad migraines all the time. And I'm at the house with my mother. It's me, the mother of my oldest daughter, and my mom. And I had a migraine that day, and she used to get prescribed perks. So I think she had tens, and she was like, take this. It was a perk 10, and I was getting ready to go to swallow it, and she's like, well, if you sniff it, it'll kick in faster. So, in hindsight, now thinking, my mom just wanted to help me. She wanted to
Right.
see me. She didn't want to see me in pain. So I did what my mom said. I sniffed half of it. She sniffed the other half. Lo and behold, my headache went away. But I wanted another one. So my mom gives me another one. So that goes on until now I want to buy them. So now
How old were you at this time?
I want to say I was like 18, 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like maybe 17, 18. From that point, I was just smoking weed up to that point. So now I'm buying them. I'm buying them from my mom. She giving me a deal, whatever. She said she was. She was so I'm buying them. So now there was a day where I didn't have any, right? So like I was feeling like weird and like my nose running and stuff like that. I'm feeling weird and stuff. And I'm like, Mom, I don't feel good. Like she's like, oh, you're dope sick. I'm like, what dope sick? I don't take dope. She's like, well, you're sick from not having pills. She gave me another pill. That's when I knew that okay, if I don't have it, this is how I'm gonna feel. So now I have to have them now. So then my uncle, well, no, not my uncle. My mom, I used to see her go. I used to see her process of getting her pills. I used to go with her when she went to the doctors. She'd give them like 200, 250, and she'll go in the bag. She'll walk back out. She'll have a script. So I'm like, okay, well, mom, well, no, I was 17 because I wasn't old enough at the time. I was like 17. So I'm like, Mom, can I do the same thing? And we tried it, but the doctor was like, well, you got to be 18. And then he said, so in the meantime, go ahead and try to get you an MRI. So
The doctor said that?
yeah, yeah. So the process was you had to have like an MRI. So what we did was I couldn't find a reason to get an MRI or something like that. Or maybe I went and got an MRI, but they didn't see anything or whatever. So we ended up doctoring up my mom's MRI. It made her MRI my MRI, but just switched some stuff.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, I go in there, you know, somebody somebody fronted me that money to pay for it, the doctor visit. So he paid for it, but I gotta give him half the script.
The doctor?
No, I gotta give the person that paid for it.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that.
All right, so okay, all right, fine, cool, boom. Well, it worked. I walked out with like 180 per 30s. It worked. So now
you have a new way of getting drugs.
Man, so listen, it was like Christmas. Like I remember getting to my house that day. The mother of my oldest daughter, she was at work. She ain't know nothing about like doing pills or anything. So I'm sitting in the house with all of these blue 30s, and I pour them out. I'll put them back in. I'll pour them out again, put them back in. I'm like, this isn't real. So I sniff one. I'll sniff another. Of course, because we go overboard. So I'm all messed up. The mother of my daughters get home, and I don't remember how she got into it, but I do. I don't remember what led up to it, but I remember, and I regret this to this day. I remember having her try it, and in hindsight, it's like you never want your queen on that. Like if you're gonna indulge,
right?
But I passed it to her, and she did it, and now she's into it. So that just spiraled out of control. And like I said, where I'm from, a per 30 will cost you it went up to like $35 to $40. So if you can imagine, all right, you run out of pills now, you got this habit where you're doing like 2 and 3 per 30s a day. So that times 40 for the month.
Yeah, I remember that. And then like when you're going through that kind of stuff, you develop these relationships with people who also take pills, like in a trade. At least mine was like when I run out, I'd make sure somebody else would have, hey, you're gonna have some, right? Like mine come on Tuesday. Like I'll have mine on Tuesday. You're gonna have something.
Oh my God!
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And then like now you're putting your eggs all in one basket.
Yeah.
And but so you don't know, but there's gonna come a time where that person isn't gonna have it. You're not gonna have it.
Yeah.
So what do you do now? So now you got to go through other people, and then you're hoping not to get swindled by the third person. You know what I'm saying? So it's a cutthroat game. Addiction, as you know, is a cutthroat, man. Like you got to send people off with your money, and like a normal person, I'm not gonna give just somebody that I don't really know $300 and hope they come back. No. But when you're sick in that moment, you'll do that. If you feel as though you'll get what you'll need, you'll give a stranger $300 and trust that person to come back.
It's crazy what we think.
It's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
So that got expensive, right? So it was this day, like I said, I was very bad pill sick, and I go to my brother's house hoping that he has at least like just one. My mother was there, my brother was there. They didn't have no pills, but my mom had dope, heroin. Like I always knew what that was, but I always knew all right, you can sell it, don't, but never touch this. This is off limits type of deal.
Yeah.
Always knew that. So I'm pill sick. I'm like, Mom, do you know where anything at? Nobody knows where anything at. But my mom brings out the dope, and she's like, well, if you take a little bit of this, you'll feel better. So, like I said, I've always been scared of it. So I'm like, I ain't gonna do that. Let's just try to find something, whatever, whatever. She's like, listen, if you take a little bit of this, you're gonna feel better. So I'm like, all right, Ma, if I see you do it, I'll do it. Because, at this point, I just want to get out of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I see her do it, then I do it, and I felt better. But now it's my word.
Now it's heroin.
Yeah, yep. Now it's my word. You get this from, and then once I saw what I could get for how much I paid for, like you said, there's no more.
It's
bills.
all heroin now.
There's no more bills, no more.
$20 or
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now it's that. So I'm still getting the script, so I'm selling all of them, but now I'm buying dope.
Yeah.
So that went on for a couple of years, and then the cocaine came into play. And I would say that's when things went from bad to as bad as it's gonna get. So I was selling crack and dope and stuff. I was already doing that. So I was selling to my mom, because again, like you either use drugs or sell drugs, and in my family. So that means you got family members selling to other family members. And the thought was the mindset was, well, at least you know what you're gonna get. And at least you know you're getting what you're supposed to, which was never fair, which was never correct. You know what I mean? My brother would be the first one to try to.
There's not a whole lot of honor in the drug game.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all, man. But I was telling them to my mom, it was the first of the month. I would never forget, it was just me and her there. And a lot of people don't know this story, but it was just me and her there the whole night. And I knew that mom gets paid on the first. God rest her soul. I knew she get paid on the first. So I always made sure I read up right before the first, so that I could have that for my mother. So I was over there, just me and her, and she spent her whole check with me. Well, most of it. So at that point, I started her tab, right? And it got to I think $200, and I cut it off because I know if it gets any more higher, I'm definitely not gonna get all my money out my mom,
Yeah.
So I cut it off, and I remember normally she'll fight me on it, when she come out there ask for another front, and I tell her, Mom, look, I gotta cut you off, and I can't do it. Normally she'll fight me on it. She'll fight me on it until I just give it to her. But it's so weird because this day she didn't. I will never forget, I was watching Forensic Files. I always watch Forensic Files. And she came out, she asked me, and I was like, Ma, I can't do it. I can't do it. And she just turned around and walked back in her room. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's strange. She ain't gonna fight me on it. So now I'm feeling bad. Now I'm about to go in there and just give her to her. You know what I mean? But she didn't let me do this. She came back out and she said something along the lines of you would if you would understand if you went through, or something along the lines of you would understand, or something like that, or if you only understood, and then turned back around and walked back. So I'm like, that's weird. That's weird. And so I go, and she's in the bathroom at the time. I go to give her some. I just was like, all right. I go to give her some, and I don't remember how it happened. But now in hindsight, it's when she said that, she was just basically planting some type of seed, because it would have never been that easy to get me in the bathroom with a crack pipe. Never. And so I ended up in the bathroom, and my mom, she had the stem. She put some on. I remember her fixing it up for me, putting it up to my mouth, lighting it for me. She did the whole 9 yards. And bro, I don't know. That was it. Me and her smoked for the rest of that night. And then the next morning I woke up, I'm like, yeah, I can't believe I just did that. I smoked crack. I don't have any more now. So now I go back to re-up, and I go back to the house, but now I start selling, but Now I call mom to the side like when nobody's around, and now I'm sneaking it like, Mom, could you do it again? Like now I'm sneaking it, you know.
Let's sneaking a couple hits here and there.
Yeah, sneaking it here and there. Nobody knew I was doing that,
Okay.
but me and my mother at that time. So now I'm sneaking around. I'm sneaking it, and it just got to the point where like the person I was getting it from, he was like, "Yo, what's going on with you? Yo? Like, you're not getting what you normally get, stuff like that." And I'll tell him like, "Well, but keep in mind, this is a family member I'm getting it from, close family member." So like, I told him something, but he started catching on. And everybody caught on. Like I was the last one to know that everybody knows because I'm moving different. I don't have money like I normally have, stuff like that. Why am I in and out the bathroom so much? Right after mom comes. Like people know. I'm thinking I'm slick.
Right.
But people know.
I remember that a bunch of times when I was smoking meth, like disappearing, like being at friends' houses, and then their kids are running around the living room, like they're pretending to have a normal family inside the home, and then two of us are dipping out to the garage every 5 minutes to take a couple hits. Like looking back at that behavior from everyone, all the adults involved, it sickens me that it was so easy for me to do that.
Yes.
Like kids are everywhere. I'm smoking meth right here. It doesn't like. I can't believe that I would do something like that.
Yeah, but that's just because it was already familiar to me. But I always say like people, your close ones, they know your patterns. So if any of your patterns are off, they're gonna pick up on it.
Right.
Right. So now that spiraled out of control, man. That's when it really got bad. It got bad, real fast, like real fast. So now I think I'm like 20, 21. Now it's dope and coke that I'm doing. So
with your mom, right?
With my mom, that was my first time doing. Yeah, all the way up to that. My first time doing the pills, the dope, and the coke was with my mom. So that was a mess for a while, and I'm with
That probably greatly affects like, the normal relationship that most people would think between a mother and a son. That dynamic is drastically shifted when there's drugs and alcohol involved, right? Especially when you're supplying it, right? And that creates a weird dynamic between two people. Like if I want to get high and you have what I need to get high with, we're at odds now. Like I need to get it, so I'm gonna be fake.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fake to you until I get it, and you're gonna be fake to me until you get what you want.
Yeah.
Like I hate the way
it's so snaked out. And a lot of people was like, how could a mother do this and do that with their son?
She's an addict.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and now I can't fault people for thinking like that.
Right.
Because
it's easy to say that. Like, people might hear this story and judge your mom, but if you have experience with addiction, you understand. If you've been involved in recovery, you understand. There's no way you can't see past that addiction when you're in it. So, I have empathy for your mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like I can't fault people for thinking like that, but just like you said, man, now in hindsight, it's like it's not her. That wasn't her. My mom would never do nothing like that. That was her addiction that did that. I've seen her addiction do a lot of stuff that I know my mom wouldn't do. Steal and stuff like that.
Right.
But I also went through stuff like that I normally wouldn't do in my right state of mind. Like stealing, like all that, man. All that stuff, man. But towards the end, it got really bad towards the end, of course,
Were you guys in the same house? Did you guys have to move around a lot?
Oh, we moved around a lot. We moved around a lot. And I went without my mother a lot. Now I think about it. I went without my mom a lot. Like I remember this one time, I was living in Chesapeake Beach at the time. And we were homeless. Me, my mom, and her boyfriend was hopping around. We were homeless. But we were living with like my uncle. We were like staying there for a couple of days or something. And I went to school. I remember I came back from school and my uncle was there, but my mom and her boyfriend was gone. I'm like, where's my mom at? And he was like, well, your mom followed her boyfriend and checked into the fifth floor. We call it the fifth floor. It's like the psych ward though. And she followed him there, and I didn't see my mom for I think like 4 years at that time. So you can imagine a kid that goes to school. You know, I see my mom send me out to school, and I come back and she's not there, and I don't see her for 4 years. You know.
4 years?
4 years. I didn't see her.
She was in the hospital for 4 years?
She wasn't in there for 4 years. She was. I don't know how long she was in there, but I think she had gotten locked up or something. Yeah. She had got locked up or something, and I didn't see her for 4 years.
What was it like when you finally saw her?
So it was, it wasn't like weird. Like I don't really remember how it was like, or where I seen her.
It's probably a lot of getting high those 4 years, right?
Well, she was locked up.
No, you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I don't think I was getting high at that time.
Okay.
No, I don't think I was getting high at that time. But I do remember her going to prison this is around the time when I first started getting clean. When I first got into the rooms around like 2016, she was in prison at the time, and I was in Baltimore at this place called Powell. And I was like, I think I was like 6 months clean, and she was up at Jessup, so she was in Baltimore too. So I'm like, I'm gonna go and see my mother, and so I go and see her, and she's gained weight, and she's all happy. And at that moment, I didn't realize that this is literally my first time ever meeting my mother.
Huh. Right?
Yeah, this is literally
because she's clean and sober.
Because she's clean and she's sober. She's in her state of mind.
Huh.
This is my first time ever meeting my mother. It was emotional because it was also her first time meeting her son within 8 years of me getting high. For 8 years straight, I was getting high. But so this is her first time seeing her son in 8 years. So.
And she's seeing him sober.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So it was. I hang on to that moment because that was the first and only time that I met my real mom. So I hang on to that, even though she's gone now. At least I got to meet her.
Right.
Even if it was one time for 1 hour, I met my mom.
Yeah.
Like I know how I had a conversation with my mother before.
A real one. Yeah.
And even though she was in prison, I feel like God gave me that moment. You know Absolutely. What I'm saying? So
that's probably some good closure, right?
Yeah.
Good way to reflect on everything that was going on.
Yeah. Cause it's so weird. Cause when I found out that what happened to her and stuff, it was weird. Cause it was kind of like a comforting feeling because I'm like, well, she's not a victim of the streets no more. Right. At least she's at peace. And to be honest, I don't think she wanted to live no more because she lost her fiance, right? And then that same year she watched their dog get killed in front of her by a pit bull. So we had a little dog. She ran up to this pit bull that was off a leash, I guess to protect my mom, and got killed in front of my mom. So that's when losing her fiance broke her, but then losing their dog really broke her. So I don't think my mom really wanted to be here no more. Not because she didn't care for us, but she's done her job, And plus my mom was suffering. Baltimore ate my mom and swallowed her and spit her back out.
What was going on after you guys met, when she gets out of prison, you meet her sober, how was your relationship after that?
It was fine, but so I was living in Hagerstown, she got out, and I'm thinking she's gonna stay clean and all of that, but she didn't stay clean. But it's alright. I think I moved to Baltimore first, I believe, and then her and my brothers decide they want to come up here. I'm like, Ma, I don't think y'all should come up here. This in Baltimore is not. I don't think y'all should, because they was getting high. I'm like, I don't think y'all should, but they did anyway. And yeah, like my brothers, they're still out there like getting high. I fear for them every day, you know. Cause the way my mom died, like nobody would have ever thought that. Like,
What happened to your mom?
So my mom, she got shot. She got shot in the head. So it's a lot of weird stories out there. But the one that makes the most sense to me is it was accidental. Um, it's still an open case though. Like I said, this happened like 2 months ago. And yeah, like I remember that. Like that day I was doing door dashes and stuff and she called my phone and she asked if I could send her $20 and I was extra hard on her this time. Like I was like, Mom, like trying to get her like, Mom, like you really gotta get yourself straight. Like I actually need to hold you accountable this time. So like, yes, on the first of the month, if you could, send it back to me, and she's like, she would, she promises and all that. So I'm like, all right, well, you got to give me a couple of minutes because I'm door dashing. I was on the scooter. So, once you any addict a green light that you're gonna send them some money, like they'll normally blow you up.
Yeah.
So she's blowing me up, and I got irritated, Mom. I'm like, Mom, like I told you, I'm door dashing. Just give me a couple minutes, and then like I sent her the money. I'm like, Mom, I'll call you back later on. I love you. Talk to you later. I hung up. Like, I was in a rush. I regret that, because later that night, my phone rang. It's like 12. I answered, and my cousin was like, you should check on your mom.
Thank you for tuning in to this part 1 of my interview with Kevin Coates. It was a very powerful, candid interview, and we're super thankful that he was able to come and share that kind of a story. Part 2 will be coming out later this week, so please stick around. Give us a 5-star rating, please, and share with your family and friends. If this helpful message is something you think that will help them, that's exactly what this is all about. So we appreciate you listening. Please give us a 5-star review and share with a friend. And thanks for listening to Almost Above Average.